Hi everyone, it's Lani from Fogelberg Consulting here with another weekly survival update for business owners. Another change of scenery for the update today. I'm sitting at my office desk. You can see a few things in the background. We've got my piano over here, my cat tree very clearly in the background, and I'm armed with my morning coffee. So let's crack into it. We've got a few hours to go until we find out whether we're going to move into alert level 2 very soon, which could happen as soon as Wednesday. And operationally, this could mean some significant changes for you as business owners. Before I talk about that though, I want to talk about the initiative that's going live tomorrow that's going to impact a lot of you, and that is the Small Business Cashflow Scheme. This is the small interest-free 100k loan scheme that I myth-busted last week, that the government announced recently as an alternative to the Business Finance Guarantee Scheme. Now, applications are going to open tomorrow, and they're only going to be open for a month until the 12th of June. So in this weekly update, I've got a lot of facts for you about this scheme that we've only just become aware of. So keep on watching. There are some key criteria around this scheme. Number one, if you've received the wage subsidy, it can't be for more than $351,480 to be precise if you're to get a loan under the Small Business Cashflow Scheme. So if you're a large organization with more than 50 employees, which is what would result in that figure, then you aren't going to be eligible to receive a loan under the scheme if you've received the wage subsidy to that tune. So that's the first key eligibility criteria. Secondly, on the note of the wage subsidy scheme, I'd mentioned in a previous video that there was going to be a revenue measure around eligibility for this scheme. They've applied the same rules as the wage subsidy in that sense. So remember how I spoke about the 30% decline in revenue? That same rule is being applied to the Small Business Cashflow Scheme. So it's running from January through to June, comparing that with the same month last year and assessing whether or not there's a 30% decline. That's only a very broad way of explaining that. I'm not going to go into more detail on that here, but you know where I am if you need some clarity around that. The other key piece of criteria is that they're not going to pay out multiple loans or grant multiple loans for commonly owned businesses. So, say if you've got a business, for example, that has a holding company, which is also you personally, they won't grant 2 separate loans to those 2 separate businesses. Lastly, and probably most importantly, is that you must be able to evidence that your business is viable in order to apply for a loan under the Small Business Cashflow Scheme, and evidence a plan to ensure that it remains viable. Now, setting aside your intention to apply for a loan under this scheme, I harp on about this, but this harks back to some basics that you should have been looking at as soon as the pandemic hit anyway, and it's your business continuity and whether your business is going to be viable through the pandemic or no pandemic. So ways you can evidence this will include cash flow forecasts, for example. It could include an assessment from your accountant. It could include previous year's financials, and it can also include some slightly more qualitative information like market conditions in relation to the sector that your business operates in, and the future viability around innovation and other initiatives that you've taken to ensure that the business remains viable. I know that's a lot of information to take in, but in the interest of keeping these updates quite brief, I'm not going to go into much further detail. I'll ensure that I get some blog posts up this week delving into each of those more clearly so you can understand your eligibility. So that's a really big update from the last week, and remember that scheme goes live tomorrow. So when I post another weekly update on maybe Friday or Saturday, I'll update any changes that have been made with regards to that scheme. But the good news is when you apply, they're aiming to turn around the loan payouts within 5 working days, which is great. If you want further information about that scheme, also take a look at the blog post that I posted early last week, which is Myth-Busting the Small Business Cashflow Scheme. A couple of other small things, industry-specific assistance. We have heard from the government that moving into the next phase of the pandemic, we can expect to see a little bit more assistance for those industries that have so obviously been hit really hard, such as tourism and hospitality. The IRD have already given assistance to the likes of farmers and fishers and growers, and it's very industry specific. So hopefully we'll see something that's a little bit broader to cater for all of you guys that are in the tourism space or restaurant and other hospitality operators. Those are all my updates for you this week. Keep your eyes open, because I think there are going to be a lot more things that come out of the wash this week, and of course depending on whether or not we move to alert level 2. One last note actually on that alert level change: if you have been working in level 3 over the last couple of weeks, you probably have a fair idea of how you're going to be operating in level 2. You need to be having a look at your operations at this point. So if you need some assistance around that and your strategy and your innovation, you know where I am. And again, keep your eyes out for more updates this week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later on in the week.